area, it feels like I'm running alongside of this car at an incredible rate. Somebody made a new whiteboard on the garage door. It's me. So I've been having this problem whenever I go to get off the freeway or I go to slow down on the highway if there's a traffic light and you gotta slow down real quick. I get a lot of shaking when I brake, a lot of shake and brake. I've done a video on this before. But the other one was about when your front rotors are warped and you get that shaking in the steering wheel side to side like you see here. You slam on the brake and your hands start doing this number. So I've been having a bunch of pulsating side to side on my seat and the whole car. The whole car does it, and so you notice it in your seat more than anything. But if you have a pulsing like this, that could be any of them, you know, including rear drums, but usually rear drums will do this more than anything. Typically you'll get a side-to-side movement in the steering wheel or a side-to-side movement in your tail. I had this number here, so we're gonna fix it. So if you feel this in your seat, it's because your rear rotors are warped. These could probably use a little machining just for the surface anyway. So in order to get the rotor off, we need to get it off of the hub, and this is blocking. This is the caliper bracket. So the way we're gonna get this off, there's two bolts on the back side. You can feel them. Fortunately, I have a lift, which some people say you don't need a lift, but I'm here to say it helps. So one of the ways that it helps is that you can get leverage. I can hang on this, for example, to crack things free. You can always drop your butt and let your butt hang down, and it gives you that extra oomph. A couple of 14mm bolts. It's also nice to not be on the ground. You can hear the wind blowing the door. It's a pretty cold day, and I do not have the furnace installed out here yet. I have yet to do that. Bing. That's the sound that the machine makes when you're winning. This being the machine or mechanical device. I win! I'm going to take a big screwdriver and work the caliper in just a little bit. Work just a little bit of slack so it goes on and off easily. Doesn't matter if you're more on the edge because we're going to machine this in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. I'm going to take this and support it elsewhere. There's somebody in there that's real observant has noticed that I'm leaking from this strut here. I got a bad strut, so I'll need to be doing a video on that here pretty soon. Just pull it off, right? Right? Wrong, it's rusted on there. So one of the things I like to do is I'll hit it with a penetrating oil, and then I'll put on a couple of lug nuts and then just whack it with a hammer. Sometimes that's all you need. Other times you have to use these threaded holes. They're an M8 by 1.25, and I just may be demonstrating that, and I may not, but you've got it if you need it. So, like I say, you want to take some penetrating catalyst and put it around where the hub face is. If you could, you can put it in through here. If you could, you'd want to get it between the hub surface, that flat surface, and the rest. You can do it through the bolt holes a little bit, and you can also do it through the wheel stud holes. Like I say, normally you'd want to let this sit for quite a while, but we're just going to go for it. I'm not really hitting this near hard enough. You could just take all of your lug nuts and put them on, and then you're free to move about the cabin with the hammer, if you will. You can't take a hammer on a plane. I'm just saying that because I'm a funny guy, or at least I think I am. So what we want to do is we want to work it side to side. So we'll hit it on this side. Make sure that we don't fall and have all that weight hit the brake hose. Yeah, we're okay. See, only now, after hitting it a little while, I'm comfortable hitting it hard enough to do the job. We're still not coming off. You can hear it. It's loose. It's free. So this, of course, is the way I do it. You should probably be using eye protection and something to protect you from the dust when you do this. Obviously, I'm not doing that because I'm being stupid. Hey, quit being, okay, I'll quit being stupid. There, you happy? You have your PPE, personal protective equipment. Now putting the lug nuts on, what that does is it keeps your hammer from chewing up the threads. If they're all chewed up, you go to put the lug nut on, it won't go. You force it on, and then it chews up the lug nut and the thing, and then it can get stuck in the on position, and then there's extraction and all that you have to do. It's hard to cut a lug nut off with the wheel on, it just is. So you heard something clattering. That was my brake shoes. These are parking brake shoes. A little bit worn, but not too bad. So what I did is I rotated this way, and when you slide, it allows this guy that's being pulled off to slip back. Here we go. So I'm gonna take this and just bang it over a garbage can. So this is a drum and hat rotor. I like drum and hat. I think it's a great idea. So you want to check your minimum thickness. Minimum thickness, 8.5 millimeter. So if you have less than that, then you don't have any to machine off. This still has plenty of thickness on it. But as I said, it's just stamped on there right there. You'll find them all over the place. But here's the drum for the emergency brake. You've got shoes and you've got pads. The brake pads, of course, go on this part, and the shoes expand in this part. Drum brakes, disc brakes. You got both. It's drum and hat. See how it's like the brim of a hat? I'm being a dork, but that's because I'm good at it. You're welcome. Helps you to remember, so I'm not shy about doing it. So we're going to throw this on the brake lathe and machine it down and see if we can find the warp. Why do brake rotors warp? Rapid temperature change. In a nutshell, that's all it takes. If you get this really hot really fast, or it's really hot and you cool it really fast, water for example, it'll warp. They don't like to change temperature faster, they warp. So there you go. So here on the brake lathe, if we zoom in, you can see that this looks really uniform and flat. It's not oscillating this way at all. But here you can see a bunch of oscillation in the side here, both at the end as well as when you put the cutting blades to it. That's the sound of something making contact intermittently. That side's warped, so when we go to do this one, you get that same sound. And so what that does is that when those brake pads grab hold of this, those brake pads grab the disc and it shakes them side to side, and the bracket side to side, it shakes everything side to side. So we're going to machine it so that it's straight. As you can see right here, this is turning automatically. You can hear that hot back and forth sound going on. So it's warped clear back up in there. Hopefully we'll be able to salvage this one. So there's controversy. A lot of people don't machine rotors anymore. They just throw on a pair of rotors because they're cheaper. But that's cheap rotors. Those are just the garbage rotors that you're throwing on. If you have a good quality rotor and it gets warped, in my experience, it's less likely to re-warp on something. You know, say there's a fringe incident, you went through a car wash after a high-speed chase. Some stupid thing like that. You didn't let your rotors cool down, you got them wet. That rapid temperature change warped them. Well, you could have the best rotors in the world. If you're going to do something like that, it's going to warp them. Or say that you have a lot of heavy braking because of some crazy scenario in the canyon where you're going downhill and you just got them really hot really fast. That'll warp them. But if you put in cheap rotors, and then cheap rotors just warp anyway. But if you machine good ones and then run the good ones, in my experience, you're better off. So that's what I'm saying. So are these in spec? Let's find out. So looking on the inside of it, you can see that you have to have, see, these are made in Japan. These are good rotors. These are probably the factory ones. So the minimum thickness is 8.5 millimeter. You can see that right there. So this is a good rotor. Made in Japan is typically good stuff. We get this set up to millimeters and then we mic it. It's easy to mic after you've machined it. You see it's 9.25 millimeters basically. So we're about 925, give or take. It's hard to mic them beforehand. So we're well within the range. We've got a good quality rotor. I could get a made in China garbage rotor and throw that on there, but the chances of that warping are actually pretty high. These rotors have 250,000 miles on them. You'll see that on a rear rotor. You won't see that on a front rotor much. It's a good rotor. Let's throw it back on. We've done one complete pass, and you can see where there's this striping here, and then it didn't get much of anything in there, and you can see the flashing of dark light, dark light. That's another indicator that I was right, that it was rear rotors that were warped. The steering wheel doesn't shake at all. You don't get any of this. It's just all in the seat of the car. The whole car shakes. See, even here, we've gone this far, and there's a hollow spot or a low spot that's not being cut. Now, doesn't that look fine? It's perfectly straight. We're within specs. And then I even just hit a little bit on the rim just to get the edge rust off. You just take your blade and then you use the side to side thing for doing drums, and you just run it just forward and back. You don't need to take off a lot, just enough to get the flakes of rust off. So I've got the bolts in here and here. I've taken a ratchet and torqued them down. As I said, I already did it. That's why it looks like they're tight. You don't want to snap them off and you don't want them coming out. Next thing we're going to do is you can line these up like this, or just look at however it is. But if you do one in the center on a 5-bolt pattern like this, then you got room for your hands on each side and you can look through the hole and lay it on like this. Always start your lug nuts just a little bit. You know, get just a couple of flicks on each one. If you put the bottom ones on first, they'll hold the wheel on better and it won't come flying off on you. The bottom wants to kick out, so the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the most attention. The rest of them you just throw them on just a couple. What I like to do is I'll use my electric impact and I'll just send them home with that for brevity. Do a star pattern so that it doesn't get lopsided. So you put one on, it sits it flat, gets it nice and even. It's like when a duck sits on its nest and wiggles. You gotta go to each side. Just like a duck butt goes side to side, nice and flat. You don't need to go crazy on it. When it gets on the ground, I'll go through and then just tighten them by hand. Now I'll go through and just tighten these down. Again, the star pattern. Just imagine I'm making a click sound. I've done enough of these to where I can feel when I'm done. So you just do the opposites. Perfect. Nobody's coming. Let's do this. I love this car. All right. Jamming on the brakes. No shakes. That was from about 65 miles an hour down to not fast. There's a lot of blood on the road here. Been so many vehicle deer collisions lately. Saw a guy with a trailer come through here and he had a trailer full of deer. Anyway, let's give her one more test, shall we? Give her hell. Let's try it again. Test number 3. Lots of oncoming traffic. No shimmy. No shimmy, no whammy. Nice! We like that. Okay, don't run me off the road there. Are you paying attention? You're just really old. And happy to be out of the house. What's up, Chad? On the symmetrical all-wheel drive, when this wheel goes this direction, that wheel goes that direction. Allow me to demonstrate. See how they go opposite? The nice thing about Subarus is if you only have traction in the rear, you hook up and move, and let me show you why. When I turn this one this direction, that one should go the other direction, right? Same story? No. They both go the same direction, and they're a lot harder to turn. And the reason why is you're turning both wheels the same direction and you're turning the drive shaft. So anything that comes down the line from the drive shaft makes the back wheels propel forward. It's like magic. This one will turn twice as fast, but at least that one will hook up and move.